Hello amigos, how's it going? This is Pug here, and today I am bringing you a Warlock guide for the Torghast Twisting Corridors. For those that are not familiar, the Twisting Corridors are the challenge mode of Torghast. Each layer consists of 18 floors with increasing difficulty, and completing all 8 layers will reward you with the Corridor Creeper, a special mount that can be used inside them all. The build we're going to be using for this challenge is the Demolock Demonic Consumption build. For this build we will take the following talents: Demonic Strength on row 15, Demonic Calling on row 25, Demon Armor on row 30, Summon Vial Fiend on row 35, Dark Fury on row 40, Summon Felguard on row 45, and Demonic Consumption on row 50. Most of these talents should be familiar to you if you play Demolock. However, the one choice that does stand out is the Dark Fury pick. In Torghast we have access to an anima power that increases the stun duration of Shadow Fury by 100%, thus giving this talent a lot of value inside the Twisting Corridors. For our soulbinds, we're going to be looking to run Fel Commando and Tyrant Soul. These two soulbinds synergize extremely well with the available anima powers and improve our pet damage significantly. Supreme Commander is a flat damage increase and damage taking decrease for our pet, while Tyrant Soul buffs our demon damage after the Tyrant expires. Since the majority of our damage inside the Twisting Corridors is going to be coming from our Felguard, both of these conduits do an incredible job in helping us pump that damage so we can meet the DPS requirements for the bosses in the higher floors. For our Soulbind, if you are Night Fae, running Dreamweaver is highly recommended for the cheat death. Otherwise, using any Soulbind that has access to the 2 potency conduits is preferred. For our Anima Power build, due to the RNG nature of power drops, we will rely on a tier list or priority list for powers instead of using a specific build. First, we're going to go over our S tier anima powers. These powers should be taken over anything else in the following order. First, we have the Pact of Infernal Intimacy. This makes it so our Summon Demon gains 100% health and damage immediately and every time you ascend a floor, up to 5 stacks. This bonus will be lost if the demon dies, is dismissed, or is resummoned. There's also some occasions in which you may go through a portal and the buff is reset. Since this anima power is the core foundation of our build, it is important for us to track the buff as well as to adapt to it whenever we lose it, either by a mistake or because the pet bugged out going through a portal. Overall, this anima power is what provides all the power our Felguard's going to need to help us clear the Twisting Corridors within a reasonable amount of time and with a reasonable amount of comfort. The next anima power we're going to look at in the S tier is going to be Soul Vial's Resolution. This makes it so unending resolve duration is increased by 1000%, so our unending resolve will actually last about 2 minutes with this anima power on. It is incredibly powerful for survival. It will allow us to survive some boss mechanics that are either AoE and our pet can't just tank, or any mistakes we may make. Things in the higher floors will more than likely one-shot you if you get hit by them and don't deal with them appropriately. The last anima power in the S tier is Tainted Blood Vial. This makes it so our Hand of Gul'dan consumes health instead of soul shards. This is powerful in giving us big tyrants, and basically giving us a big army of imps that we can use to either implode into a big pack of mobs or just to deal damage. It is the least necessary out of these 3 talents, so a lot of times you may actually not even get it or not pick it because it conflicts with one of the other 2 choices that you have. However, it does make our runs a lot smoother and gives us a more consistent damage pattern and allows us to just have bigger tyrants pull to pull. Moving into the A tier anima powers, these are powers we're going to want to grab either from orbs or vendors when available, and they provide a significant damage boost to our character or our pets. First, we have the Dark Whisper Signet. This will make it so that we summon an extra demonic tyrant. This is pretty straightforward. More tyrants equals more damage, and it also increases the amount of time our demons will stay up. So Vial Fiend and Felguard will be staying up longer, and once you have enough of these, you will actually have them overlap and get something like 2 minutes or 1 minute Vial Fiends, which is incredibly powerful. Next, you have Hellfire Pacts. Your summon demon just damage is increased by 50%. Very straightforward, incredibly powerful, it's really cheap, it's a common talent. You should almost always take this when available. And finally, Pact of Thickness. Your primary demons have 50% more health. Because of decon, this makes our tyrants hit that much harder, and it's going to be a welcome addition to our anima power arsenal. It also increases our pet damage, which will be tanking for us. So again, just more health, more damage, more tankiness. It all works on each other. The next two anima powers give us the talents as baseline abilities. First is going to be Netherlord's Invocation, which gives us From the Shadow. What this does is it makes it so that any targets hit by our Dreadstalker's Bite will take increased Shadow Flame damage, and this is the kind of damage both our Tyrant and our Imps do. The second one that we want is going to be Netherlord's Lesson, and this just gives us Demon Armor baseline, allowing us to take either Fell Rush, which I do not recommend, or Dark Pact, which is a nice shield, and it will be very useful in the higher floors of Torghast, giving us an extra defensive ability to be able to deal with nasty mechanics on the later bosses and trash packs. The last two anima powers in the A tier are incredibly powerful if we can pick them up early and stack them up. So this Embodied Tongue will make it so that any target inflicted with Curse of Tongues gives us haste. This can be multi-dotted, making it Curse of Tongues actually incredibly powerful and gives us a really good reason to apply it. And Shadowed Shortblade increases our Shadow Fury stun duration by 100%, which if we stack 2 or 3 times, we can get to something like Shadow Fury durations of 20 seconds. So having an AoE stun that lasts 20 seconds is insane in the higher floors, and it works on the bosses as well. So it kind of gives us just this 20-second window in which we can almost do anything we want, create a free opener without having to worry about dodging mechanics or having to deal with damage coming from the boss. It's just free reign for us, which again, incredibly powerful. Next up are the B tier talents. These talents are better than defensive powers and the armaments that give us baseline stats. However, they're not as good again as A or S tier talents. So we want to pick them up when nothing else good is available, either from an orb or from the vendor. First up is Bottled Shadow. This anima power makes it so gaining a stack of Soul Remand increases our pet's damage by 200% for 15 seconds. This has a lot of value on the regular floors where we can coordinate when we're going to get this buff. So we can pull around it and plan around it. However, on boss floors we can't get this buff, so it is pretty much useless. The soul remands, for those that don't know, are just those little souls that are laying around Torghast, so whenever we pick one of those up, this anima power will give us that buff. Next up is Bloodstained Dagger. This makes it so Health Funnel will also reduce our pet damage taken by 35%. This is kind of useful, however we won't be casting that many health funnels just because of the previous talents that we have taken that increase our pet damage and the soul binds that reduce our pet damage. This doesn't seem to be all that useful. It may have some niche uses early on, however as we ascend we will find that we really won't have much use for this. Then Smoking Shard of Teleportation makes it so using Demonic Circle or Demonic Gateway reduces our damage taken by 50% for 10 seconds. This can be a powerful defensive ability, but again, it is not something we want to prioritize. There's other defensive abilities that hopefully we have taken by now. We should have a large health pool to help us deal with a lot of the damage coming in. The last two anima powers in the B tier are both defensive. Dissolving Vial makes it so corruption is instant and it gives us corruption slow. This can be useful if things go wrong and we need to kite, so we have corruption slow. Pretty cool. Then Blood Gorge Leech makes it so our abilities have a very high chance to heal us for 5% of our max health, and this stacks, so it helps us counteract the punishment from the S tier talent that replaces our Hand of Gul'dan cost for health. However, it is not necessary. Warlocks are pretty tanky. Again, these are all nice to haves, but I would not prioritize them over some of the previous talents. Then on the C tier, we have put the defensive powers and the armaments. So these are things that we're going to want to grab when nothing else is available. The defensive powers drop off the elites, so you will almost never guarantee to get the same one twice. However, again, when we kill some of these elites, we'll be given a choice between getting an offensive power, Phantasma, or a defensive power. The defensive power will 99% of the time be the better choice, mostly because, again, in the higher floors, most of our damage is going to come from our demon. we have a strong damage pattern, and anything that will help us survive mistakes that we may make is always welcome. So things like Icy Hard Crust, which absorbs 60% of damage dealt to you when your health is below 15%. Again, very, very powerful. And the Stone Ward shields you for 20% of your max health every 30 seconds. Again, just small things like this that make her run better or faster or safer is what's going to be going under this defensive power category. And then we have the armaments. This is the stat increases. And the priority we're going to want to follow for these are going to be health, mastery, haste, verse, and crit. The main reason being the more health we have, the more health our Felguard is going to have, the tankier he is. So that means that our demonic consumption is also going to suck more health and make our tyrants bigger. So it just kind of feeds on itself. Again, health is just very good for us. Mastery, we take mastery because this increases our demon damage. Usually you want haste crit on regular builds, but since we have Disembodied Tongue, haste will actually drop in value because we have ways to get haste that is not just from our stats. Yeah, get these procs that give us haste. And then again, verse crit, they're just kind of lower talents. A lot of our things can crit. However, getting those flat damage increases for our pets and our demon damage is what we're looking for. Then finally on the D tier, I have 2 powers that I think are good if we can get them very early. They're super situational, however, and the value that we get from them, again, it's going to vary with mileage kind of thing. First is the Soul Void Bag. Makes it so any creatures that die with corruption have a 5% to give you a soul remnant. This synergizes surprisingly well actually with other anima powers we have picked in higher tiers, right? Like instant corruption and the demon damage whenever we get a soul remnant. However, 5% chance is very low. It does stack, however, it does appear that the stacking buff is currently bugged in the game and hopefully it'll be fixed soon. So even if you have 3 or 4 of these, so you have a 20% chance, the mobs themselves actually only have a 5% chance debuff to give you this soul remnant. This adds up over time. It gives you some damage randomly whenever it procs because of some anima powers. However, if we can get it early, it's really good. If you don't get it that early, again, not that good. Then Gluten's Guise makes it so whenever we cast Cold Dreadstalkers, we get 5 Phantasma. If we can get this early and get a handful of these early, we can actually get quite a bit of Phantasma. However, as we start ascending floors, the potential for this kind of decreases. We really want to be using this early to get early anima powers and kind of get a head start on the game per se. However, both of these 2 anima powers in that D tier are just situational. Take them early if available. They can be useful, but I wouldn't be missing out on stuff on previous tiers just for this. All right, and now everything that we didn't talk about, these are just anima powers that are either minimal in power gain, almost borderline useless, or just not worth mentioning. This is just the core stuff that we want to focus on to be able to clear the Twisting Corridors. Now, talking more to what the Twisting Corridors are as a challenge mode, really it's a combination of 2 challenges. First is clearing the floors themselves. We have to be able to manage our pools, think about our pools ahead of time, and not pull too much since there's no limit in time. There's just a limit in deaths. We can actually take as long as we want. And then the second challenge is going to be the boss floors. In here, we don't have kind of that time advantage where we can just take as long as we want because the boss does mechanics and we only have so many tools to deal with those mechanics. So we just need to have the DPS to kill the boss before he kills us, right? Get the boss health to 0 before our health gets to 0 kind of thing. So when building up in Torghast, we have to keep both of these things in mind and try to balance them. We don't want to build early too boss heavy because then clearing the floors will be just difficult, but we also don't want to have a build where we're only really good at doing AoE damage, but have not much single target damage, because then clearing the boss will be difficult. So it's more of a balance. Some of these talents may move up and down in tiers for you personally, depending on what's going to be more valuable for you at that time. However, with enough time and dedication, hopefully you'll be able to get them out. Personally, it took me about 10 hours to complete all the floors, with the last layer taking about 2 hours, mostly because I lost my buff towards the end, making the last 3 floors absolutely painful to complete. Alright guys, so this is it for the guide. Hopefully you find the information here useful and it will help you clear Torghast, get your mount, make the maw a little bit more variable. If you like this guide, please support me by subscribing to the channel or following me on Twitter or Twitch. Links are below. And yeah, hopefully everybody has a good day, and I will see you all out in the Shadowlands.